I think it did. I think it did it.
We seem to something's happening.
I think
There's
that
definitely
means
something happening.
we're live on Twitter too. That's wild. Yeah, it says we are. I don't know what that means. Hi, Twitter. Or actually, I guess it's X. Whatever. Hello and welcome to episode number 899 of the Player One podcast for Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. I'm your host, Chris Johnston, and with me, as always, from Canada is Mr. Greg Seward.
Hello.
How's it going, buddy?
Pretty good. I can't believe we're at 899. That number crept up on me somehow.
I know. Yeah, me too. One away from the big 900. And that means we're 100 episodes away from episode 1,000.
A couple
right?
years away from 1,000.
I know. It's crazy.
If we live that long.
If we live that long. Hopefully we do. 100 episodes is not that far away. It's like 2 years, right?
Phil will be 50.
True. And
I
we
won't.
want to stick around for that, right?
Yeah, I guess. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 899 episodes. That's crazy. And speaking of Phil, by the way, you may have noticed that
It's awfully quiet.
It's awfully quiet when we started talking about Phil. He is taking the week off this week because he has laryngitis. That's right. Can't talk. And yeah, so we are doing this just you and me, the dynamic duo,
Doing
the original
it live.
lineup.
Yep, that's right.
Of the Player One podcast. So I guess that means we should jump right into talking about Microsoft.
Why? What happened at Microsoft?
Have you not been following the news, sir?
They're getting out of consoles.
Their business update podcast hit on Thursday, and didn't reveal a whole lot, but did acknowledge the big news is that they are bringing 4 games to other consoles.
Did they say which ones?
They did not say which ones.
So, Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush, obviously.
Yes, Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush. Well, what they said in the podcast was they were bringing 2 smaller games and 2 established live service games with large social communities to other platforms. But they wouldn't name those. So
Hi-Fi Rush fits that smaller game.
Hi-Fi Rush definitely fits that. Sea of Thieves definitely fits the live service.
What other live service games do they have?
Been out for a few years. So since that podcast, the rumors have said that it's Pentiment is the other smaller game.
I have no idea what that is.
It is a Obsidian Entertainment narrative sort of game.
Okay.
It's on Game Pass if you want to try it. I haven't played any of it. And then Grounded is the other live service.
I forgot about Grounded.
That's also from Obsidian. And that will apparently be coming to other platforms too. And I actually think those are good choices to bring as kind of like a first salvo. I think the only one out of there that you could really say, oh man, it's core Xbox is probably Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, I would say.
Right? Like Grounded has done very well on Steam. It's done well on Xbox too, but I think it makes sense to bring that over, especially maybe to the Nintendo Switch, because I think that's a game that younger players would like. And not to say that the Switch is only younger players, but I think it fits that demographic very well.
Thinks Nintendo only does kiddie games.
No, it's a family friendly game. Let's just say that. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah, okay.
survival.
I mean, no, those make sense. I don't I don't know much about Grounded or that Pentatonic or whatever you said it was, the other one.
Pentiment.
That's what I said. Pentiment.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
So wait, the
yeah,
sky so the
those
sky
are both
wasn't
games.
falling then? Because
Sky not
boy,
falling.
I
Yeah,
was
they are
I was
going to
reading like Xbox fans throwing themselves off buildings and stuff like that. Like,
they're going to continue making hardware, and apparently they have more hardware announcements to come in late 2024. So possibly a more powerful Xbox, possibly a handheld. Like the rumor mill
oh
is
God, really?
talking about that kind of thing.
I
Uh,
well, I guess I could see where they're doing streaming so much. I could see them doing something like a Portal. Well, actually, something a little bit. No,
hmm.
not even that. It's not something tethered to.
You don't think they could do something like a ROG Ally or a
Yeah,
Steam
that's
Deck?
now that I'm. That's what I mean. I was backpedaling there. It would
They
be. I
probably
think if they
could.
do portable, it'll be something more like a Steam Deck
Yeah, I could see that
with
happening.
live with
Or
yeah
partnering with somebody to do it,
yeah
you know?
yeah
Uh yeah, and they said that first of all, they were asked straight up, Starfield and Indiana Jones, are those two of the games that you're talking about? And they said no. Starfield and Indiana Jones are Xbox exclusives for now,
yeah. I was gonna
whatever
say
that
they're.
means.
I guess probably move into the timed exclusive thing.
Yeah, and maybe
Maybe.
that'll move into that. Um but yeah, and Game Pass is apparently going to be only on PC and Xbox. They're not bringing Game Pass to Switch or PlayStation, which I think makes sense. Let's just go ahead and say that out loud since so many people are like, well, are you going to bring Game Pass to
Well, yeah. I
PlayStation?
mean, if they're gonna stay in hardware, then it doesn't make any sense to put Game Pass on
No,
competing hardware.
no, it doesn't. Yeah.
But it makes sense to put it on a handheld or
Sure. Yeah,
televisions.
absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, it was before this podcast, it was a bit of the sky is falling kind of thing. And it's not really as bad as some people made it out to be, which it never was going to be that, right? They're always going to make this move, whatever move they end up making,
Uh,
even if they end up down the line making Starfield and Indiana Jones for PlayStation, it has to
sure.
start somewhere, right? They have to kind of ease into that anyway. And
Yeah.
uh Phil Phil Spencer, I almost said Phil Harrison there. Wow.
Wow. That's a
Phil
blast from the past.
Spencer said that this is an experiment. They're doing this as an experiment with 4 games. And it's not just going to end with that, right?
No.
Like if these are successful in any way, which I imagine they will be, uh at least I think Sea of Thieves will do very well on PlayStation.
I'm sure it'll give them a bump,
They'll do
right?
more.
Because it'll be nice and new
Yeah.
for anyone who hasn't played it before
Yeah.
on that in that ecosystem.
And Sea of Thieves just did an update which added a bunch of tutorials and like reconfigured how everything is set up in the game. And
Right.
I think it's very well matched now to go to a new platform because there's so much new in that. There's that safer seas mode where you only play on a server by yourself or with your friends only. So
I want
it's a
to.
good time
I've
for
been
that.
thinking. I might want to jump in and try that.
Yeah, you want to try it? Okay.
I don't know
You jump in and
when,
try it.
but I would like to. Like, God knows where that leaves us.
That would be fantastic. I'd love to sail with you on the seas.
Do we have to take Mike though?
We don't have to.
I'm just kidding. I would want to take Mike. I just say that because I know he's probably listening. So
He probably is. You're right. So yeah, new hardware, 4 games. They're still making exclusive Xbox games. So yeah, not too much really changes. I mean, it's going to be a slow change or a slow transition, and we'll just see how it goes.
next thing you know, you'll be able to get a Series X for free if you sign up with AT&T for a year. And
They have tried. When you think about what Xbox has tried since the flub with the original launch of the Xbox One, I mean, they've really gone for it in so many different ways. Like even just doing Game Pass and launching games into Game Pass day one and then doing two iterations of their console and like
Yeah.
they really have done they've made so many moves to try to up their market share against Sony and none of it has worked.
No. I mean, they've been on the decline since the 360, right? Really.
Yeah, in the late stage of the
Compared to
360
their competitors anyway. I don't know if
compared
their
to their competitors, yeah.
sales went up, but
Yeah, and of course Nintendo is runaway first if you're just looking at the big 3, but nobody's really thinking of Nintendo as competition with
and
Sony so
they've
much.
said that they're not releasing Switch 2 this year, right?
So that's another story here. The rumor
I
is
know. I was helping you transition.
thank you so much for that. The
Shh.
rumor is that the Switch 2 is going to be out in 2025 instead of this year.
It's a long life cycle.
It is a long life cycle, especially when you think of remember back in the day with the NES, the Super Nintendo, the N64, and then all the other hardware that came out like around that time. Like, and
Yeah.
now we're looking 2017 to 2025, like an 8-year cycle for the Switch.
Well, I
It's just
mean,
kind of crazy.
we were talking about this in the previous generation though too, and it used to be like the rule of thumb was usually like 5 years,
Yeah.
right? Like it
Yeah.
go to 5-year cycle. That didn't mean that the old system was dead, but the new one was coming out and ramping up for a couple of years. But
Yeah.
I mean, starting last generation, we started to see iterative consoles.
Yeah.
So
But
not
not
that
with the Switch.
not with the Switch. I mean the OLED, but that was really it.
OLED. Yeah.
So, but I mean, I guess it's its own thing, right? And I mean, it was underpowered when it came out.
Yeah.
So it's not
And
like
it's
it's not like people who are into the Switch are there for the cutting edge technology. Like,
that's true.
so I could see them having a longer cycle. I'm really
Mm.
interested to see what's next. Like if the Switch 2 just ends up being well, we're just calling it Switch 2. If the next console ends up being basically a more powerful Switch, um, I mean, I could totally see
Yeah.
that happening, and
Yeah.
I think it would make a ton of sense, especially backwards compatible. Um, but it'll be interesting to see because it seems like since the late 90s, Nintendo has not necessarily been able to transition to they haven't been able to keep momentum generation to generation, right?
Yeah.
Like it was diminishing returns with N64, and GameCube did okay, and then of course the Wii was incredible, but then the Wii U was kind of a letdown. So they're kind
Well, in
of
terms of sales, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
And they
it
brought all
was a
those
fine
games to the
system.
Switch and they're huge hits.
Right. It was a fine system, but but anyway, I'm curious to see if they try something different and then how successful that'll be just because they're
What do you mean about try
since the
something different?
90s. Well,
Expand on
something that's not
what
the
does that
Switch,
mean? What does try
something
something
that's
different mean?
I don't know. I
What
don't
would
know.
it mean to you?
I wish I knew. I don't know. Like that's the thing. I didn't expect like when we were in the middle of the when we were in the middle of GameCube, like the progression from NES all the way through to GameCube made sense to me.
Mhm.
Where and I don't mean to say that they were doing anything wrong. It's just that was sort of the traditional at that point the traditional trajectory for different generations of consoles. It was just more powerful.
Yeah.
Um, but it was still sort of pretty much a traditional console. Now Nintendo helped set up that trajectory, like they, NES to Super Nintendo, and then with N64 not going CD, that was a little bit different, but it was still pretty much, here's something more powerful, here's something more powerful, over and over again. At the beginning of the N6 or at the beginning of the GameCube's life cycle, there's no way in the world I think anyone would have guessed what was going to happen with their next hardware iteration. Like,
No.
the Wii. No, I remember when we finally saw the Wii controller for the first. There were rumors forever about how it was like this completely different. It was just going to be something completely out of left field. And then I remember people in the press finally seeing the controller for the first time, and just being like, I wouldn't in a million years have guessed that this is what they were going to do.
Right.
And then even at that, like when that took off, I never would have guessed what the Wii U was going to be. By the time it came out, we all kind of knew what it was going to be, but and then again, when that faltered, the Switch, I don't know. It's just they're always doing something completely different. And I'm curious because they've gone now 3 generations where they've done each new hardware has been something completely different than the previous one.
Yeah.
With
Although within
shades of
that,
what
they
it
have done,
was.
especially on their handhelds, they have done iterative
Right.
consoles. Like 3DS had new 3DS, DS had the DSi
Right.
line. So they
And
have
I guess
iterated
that's
that way.
important in context too, because while they were doing what they were doing on the home console side, they were iterating on their handheld. And I mean, really the
Yeah.
Switch was the two of them coming together.
Yeah.
Right. So again, I don't know. I would think the safe money would be on just being a more powerful Switch with
Yeah.
maybe some new features. But also, we've seen Nintendo on the home console side just take wild swings since the early 2000s. For the last 20
Yeah.
years, they've been doing it. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what comes next. I have a feeling it would just be a Switch 2, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if anyone's going to try something wildly different, it'll be Nintendo.
I agree. Yeah. I don't think they're going to bring back motion controls in a big
No,
way, though.
I think that ship has sailed.
That ship definitely sailed. Yeah, I'm curious about it too. I think it is smart for them to, if they are going to launch it uh next year, it'll be outside of the holidays. And I like that. I kind of liked the March release of the original Switch just
Mhm.
because it was maybe a little easier to get a hold of. I still pre-ordered it from Amazon, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm so used to when a new console's announced, just pre-ordering at this point.
yeah,
I've somehow managed to avoid not being able to find systems.
yeah,
Like the system scarcity, I've somehow managed to avoid it for the last 15 years. I
yeah.
don't know how, but
Yeah, and I'll be getting a Switch too whenever it happens.
oh yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And the common thinking now is that they're spending 2024 kind of holding back like the big games so that they have an impressive lineup for whenever Switch 2 happens. So,
I just think we need Mario Kart 9. That needs to be a launch game.
Mario Kart 9. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, what is that team working on? Cuz they haven't done anything since ARMS, right? Was that the last thing the Mario Kart team
I
did?
have no idea. I had no idea that they were the Mario Kart team that did that.
Yes. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Mario Kart team did ARMS. So
I don't know.
we'll have to see. Maybe we'll see Splatoon 4 on the Switch 2. You never know. The that side order DLC comes out this week, and that's kind of the last wave of Splatoon DLC, I think. So maybe we'll see Splatoon 4 pretty soon. Just in
That would
time
make
for more
sense.
amiibos to add to my collection.
Mhm.
Yes. All right. Let's talk about this. Let's stay in rumor land because apparently the rumor is, and this kind of came out of Sony had an earnings call where they announced or said they have no plans to release any new entries in major franchises,
Right.
and meaning God of War and Spider-Man
Right.
in 2024. So, uh, but that doesn't mean that they're not releasing any games in 2024. And one of the rumors is that there's a new Astrobot game that's going to release this year, and apparently it's Team Asobi's biggest game to date. So new Astrobot.
I would be totally down for that.
I'm down for it too. I was surprised that we didn't see a new VR Astrobot with PSVR
Yeah,
2, and I
me too.
remain so surprised that nothing has happened in that arena. But I will play the heck out of a new Astrobot game, whether it's VR or not. I think
I would
Yeah.
hope it would be VR, but at the same time, if they don't have any other like tentpole franchises this year, I can't see limiting themselves to just releasing it on VR.
Well, yeah, and I'm thinking, what do they even have for PSVR 2 at this
Well, I
point? I
mean,
mean, they released Call of the
yeah,
Mountain, and they
yeah,
have done some funding with games like I think Synapse was a funded game for the PSVR 2, but that platform just hasn't had the first party support that I was
no,
hoping that it would.
yeah, me too. The fact that they even released it at all gave
Yeah.
me so much hope because I thought, okay, well, then they really believe in this.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't release a new headset if it wasn't gonna be, I don't know, supported.
Right.
Yet here we are. you know,
Yeah.
what's there is great, but it's been nothing.
Yeah, we're coming up on a year of PSVR
Yeah.
2. Indeed. Well, Alan Wake 2 is Remedy's fastest selling game to date, 1.3 million copies. And this is a digital only game,
Oh, I forgot about
no
that. That's
physical
right.
version of Alan
When
Wake
I
2.
saw this headline, I was like, "Oh, that's cool," but I didn't really think much of it. But yeah, you're right. No physical
No
copies.
physical.
That's it. That's the end. Pack it up. No more physical games.
Yeah. I think that is going to be a trend that continues in 2024. More digital
Oh,
only
definitely.
releases. And a lot of the time now, the physical disc isn't the final game. It's not even the day one patched
No, that's what I've been
uh,
saying for a while now. It's like,
thing.
while I totally agree with, hey, I'm not a fan of the fact that we don't really own our games anymore either. Like
Yeah.
I haven't been. I've never. It took me a while to switch over to all digital
Yeah.
for exactly that reason. But after a while, it got to the point where it's like, well, this physical disc isn't the game,
No. It's just a
without like
key
the
that
2 gig day one patch.
yeah. Technically it's
And
just a key that keeps you playing the
right.
data that's on your hard drive.
And then, plus you have updates and patches and things like that. And so, like, unless you've got those physical discs plus consoles that are just bursting at the seams with patches and everything like that,
Yeah.
10 years from now, if those services are down and those patches are no longer being served, I mean, you're in the exact same position as anyone who had a digital copy,
Yeah.
more or less. Uh, so
Hmm.
that was kind of what finally got me to that, and I was just running out of space. But
The convenience factor.
yeah, I would much rather get games that are complete on day
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
and have a physical version of that and never have to think about it again. But it's just not the world we live in anymore.
No, it
So,
is not. Yeah. Well, I think it's time for what we've been playing.
I mean, if you say so.
I do say so. And you're going to tell us about what you've been playing first. You get to go
Wow,
first.
I get to go first.
Yeah, I
Man,
know.
Phil needs to not show up more often. I'm just kidding. It was my turn to go first this week anyway. CJ rotates
True.
it every week. Phil wouldn't know that, but I do because I appreciate what CJ does.
You look at the outline. Phil
I
does
do
not
look
look
at
at
the
the outline.
outline. Yeah, so I had mentioned last week that I was playing Silent Hill: The Short Message. It's like a 2 or 3 hour game. I did finish that this week, finally. Finally. I was playing it for a few days, but
Mm.
yeah, so I finished that off, and kind of like I mentioned last week, still held true by the end. Where, I mean, it's a highly atmospheric, highly intense walking simulator,
Mhm.
with um, chase sequences that are clearly there to break up. I don't want to call it monotony because I don't think that's fair, but just to break up the mechanics a little bit. So the way that'll work is like you're walking through this apartment complex. You're going through the same area. I think there's 3 chapters in the game, and you're going through the same area over and over again. Kind of like PT, I guess, in a way,
Mm.
although much bigger than that, I think. Um, and every now and then, like you play this teenage girl named Anita, and you can always, I think, always see her phone. You can always see her phone screen. And that's really all she's got is her telephone. She doesn't have any weapons or anything like that. And every now and then, like, you'll go through a door and the screen will get kind of static. Her phone screen will get staticky, and you'll just be a lot of effects. And then suddenly you're running, and you're in these corridors that are mostly fenced off, and they've got a lot of plant life around them. It's mostly I think they're rose petals, some kind of petals, and flower petals anyway. And there's a monster. That's just, I think it's a woman, but it's wrapped in, like, it looks like barbed wire and flowers and stuff like that. And you can't defend yourself. So if it catches you, it kills you in one hit. And then you go back to whatever the checkpoint. You wake up and you're back at the checkpoint right before the maze chase. So like the first time that happens in the game, it's down like a single corridor. And I think as you're running, the door will open and the monster is right there. Cherry blossoms, those are the petals. The monster's right there. And then, like, if you turn left and open the door, that's it, or something along those lines. Like, it's very straightforward. You kind of really have to screw up to get caught. I think they happen 3 or 4 times in the game, and they get sort of more and more intricate until you get to the final part of the game, and you're in this big looping maze where you have to find 5 photographs while you're being chased. So you have to find these items that you can interact with, because there's a door that ends the game that has, like, it's the CB door, it's the cherry blossom door, and it's got 5 chains on it. And by finding these 5 photos, each time you get it, one chain will fall away, and basically that's the end of the game. Like, you get through that door, the game ends. And it didn't need to be there. The presentation is good enough that you can tell where you're going, and like the maze loops, but it's not super it wouldn't be super confusing if you weren't running the whole time and you weren't being chased, like, and I don't know how close the monster is behind you most of the time because I never stopped to look back. I just wanted to sort of get it done. And I did end up just jumping into a walkthrough to figure out where I have to make a turn, because it's so easy to go through the wrong door and not necessarily die, but get sent back to, like, the beginning of the section. And it was just getting a little bit rough. I don't know. It didn't ruin the game because I wasn't loving it that much, but it didn't help for the ending. But I will say that the themes in that game, very effective. I think I mentioned last week that, you know, it was made as a demo. It was made on the cheap. It doesn't look cheap, but it doesn't look, you know, like a AAA survival horror release either. Like, that shines through. But I mean, I think the visuals are great. I think the sound is pretty good. The actress that they use, I mean, she's constantly, I don't know, she's constantly upset. So it's kind of single note, and it starts to wear a little bit. But it touches on some really scary themes and also really modern themes, like the whole, well, it's not the only thing, but like a lot of it is about bullying. A lot of it is about teenage suicide. There's also an element of, like, child abuse in there. Like, she's a survivor. So I don't know if it have the same effect on everyone, but I know me, and probably you and Phil too, as fathers, although your children are younger than mine, it really was playing on some of my deepest fears, because, you know, I constantly, and I think most parents of teenagers nowadays do, sort of struggle with the idea that, like, bullying especially is so different than it once was, that it was when we were kids, where, you know, and I don't want to sound like I'm minimizing it, because I wasn't ever bullied. But, you know, I feel like at least before we were constantly connected, there was at least a chance that you could turn it off. You know what I mean? Like, you come home and the only way people can really reach you is via telephone, like a landline. And so, you know, whereas kids today, they're constantly connected, they're constantly bombarded, as along with, like, social media and everything that goes with that. And there's a bunch of
Hmm.
text throughout the game, like a bunch of reports and like snippets of reports and everything, talking about sort of the mental health effect that like the COVID-19 pandemic had on youth, because this all takes place after COVID-19. They name drop that a lot
Oh, really?
in the game.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Huh.
And also sort of the mental effect that social media has on teenagers. I think it's really interesting. I think it's a little bit disturbing. So I'm glad I played it. I don't know that I would play a full length game like
Right.
this, but I did enjoy what I played. But yeah, the maze stuff got pretty bad by the end, which was too bad. But either way, first game I finished this year. 3
Nice.
hour 3 hour free demo. Buckle up.
Even better. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that was I think it's worth playing. It's worth trying. It's not going to take too much of your time.
Well, and it's free.
And it's free.
Can't beat that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they could pay you, but I don't see that happening. So, so the other thing that I've been playing, mostly what I've been playing this week, is the Tomb Raider 1 through 3 remake came out from Embracer. I'm sure half the people who released this game probably don't have jobs anymore. Who knows? But the so this is the compilation where it's not like the Tomb Raider Anniversary Edition that came out years ago from Crystal Dynamics. This is more or less literally a reskin of the original games, the original 3 games on PC and PlayStation, and the first one was on Saturn as well.
What platform are you playing this on?
PlayStation 5.
Okay.
So I love the original Tomb Raider, like one of my favorite games. And Anniversary was better than this for sure, but Anniversary is like 10 or 15 years old now too, isn't it? That was a 360 PS3, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's at least 10 years old.
Yeah, it's more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's at least probably 15. So this is like literally a reskin, a widescreen reskin of the first game, with higher resolution textures on things and different control schemes. So the first Tomb Raider, well, all Tomb Raiders up until I think maybe Angel of Darkness, use tank controls. So, you play as Lara, you're in a 3D space. If you push up, she moves forward. You push down, she moves backward. And left and right, she'll pivot. And then it's all about holding a button to strafe and walk and shoot and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Which I prefer in those games. Those games were built around that. I mean, the first game in particular was more about environment puzzles than combat. And it was built on a grid system. Everything in that game is a square block, right? So
I never liked the control.
I can see that. And
like
nowadays they would be really hard to go back to if you never really played it. But anyway, they've added analog control to these games. So if you want to play that way, you can.
And did you?
No, I tried it. It doesn't. I've played the first Tomb Raider a lot, and I prefer those controls. The puzzles are built around the tank controls, in my opinion. They're designed around the tank controls, so it makes the most sense, and it's most comfortable for me to play that way. But I do love that they added this analog control for those who would want it. And I can definitely see people, especially if they're going back and kind of experiencing these games for the first time, because again, these games are pushing 30. It makes sense to have that control scheme in there. And it's got that same thing where so many modern remakes have, where you press on the PlayStation controller, it's the start button or whatever that's called on the PlayStation controller now.
The option
button. If you press the option button, it switches to a version of the old game, like the old textures and everything. It looks way better than it ever did on a PlayStation. You don't have all the warping and all that stuff. I'd say it probably looks better than what you would see on like a 3D FX card or something like that back in the day on the on the PC. Although John Linneman did a great video of this, actually, a comparison video about this trilogy, and he more or less said like it's, it looks like it's on a really powerful 3D effects like Voodoo card or something. Although weirdly, when you switch back and forth, the frame rate changes. Like when you're in like the modern textures, it's running. I think it's running at 60, with a little bit of slowdown here and there. But when you switch back to the old textures, it drops to 30 frames a second, and it's really jarring. And I don't know if that's on. I assume it's on purpose. I can't imagine that it had to be at 30. And I normally don't care about that stuff, but it's just so noticeable. But anyway,
was it originally at 30 or was
I
it?
I think so. I don't remember.
Because
Like I
some of
said,
those games, those PlayStation games back in the day, were higher frame rate too.
yeah. Like I would say again, go to Digital
Foundry.
Digital Foundry, thank you. And check out John Linneman's video on it. He dives much deeper into it than I will right here.
Okay.
But anyway, it's been fun to I'm about 50% of the way through the first game again. And it's been so much fun to go back and play it again. I've played it a bunch, but I haven't played the original game in years. And so it was just sort of like putting on an old comfortable pair of shoes, like just because I just adore the first Tomb Raider so much, and it's nice to play. I loved Anniversary, and I love sort of the reimagining of what this game was, with more modern controls and sort of modern design. But I do love playing this version of it again, and it's nice to play it with high-res textures. That being said, well, first of all, and again, John talks about this a lot. I'm impressed by the textures in this game, because it would have been so easy to, I think, to just sort of smooth them and up-res them, maybe using AI, that sort of thing. It doesn't look like that. They look like they're handmade, basically, but they also look very true to the original designs. Like if you switch to like the original mode, assuming that those are true to what they were almost 30 years ago, like it's doing a really stunning job of recreating that look, but in a much higher resolution. And the lighting it's not going to win any awards for lighting. Like it's got shadows and stuff like that, but they're kind of wonky. Like it's not weird to see Lara's shadow like up on a wall somewhere or something like that. And like the lighting is it's not real-time lighting, I don't think. Or if it is, it's very rudimentary. It feels more like baked in, like the old sort of how we used to do it, where you just leave a level sit overnight while the lighting was bouncing around and sort of baking it into the textures and that sort of thing. And it's funny because of that, the game seems much brighter than the original until it isn't, and then it's like super dark. So I actually find myself switching back and forth, especially when I get into darker areas, because the old game didn't have that range of lighting. So like, if you're going into a dark corner, if you just switch to the old graphics, everything lights up, right? So you can see a little better. And it's useful because in the previous game, the pickups were all textures. So they were a higher resolution than the texture maps around them. And I find that, especially in darker areas, in the modern version of the game, it's really easy to miss, especially little things like keys and stuff like that. It's just easy not to see them at all.
Okay.
So if you like switch over real quick to the old style graphics, like those items will be big and easy to see, and so it's easy. Like I was in a room tonight, like I'm in St. Francis Folly, which is like the second big area of the game. And I was in a room where there were like shotgun shells and a med kit. So I picked those up, and then I was kind of just looking around the room because I was kind of stuck. I was in a place that I couldn't advance because I hadn't thrown a switch somewhere or something like that. But just to be sure that I wasn't missing something because of a shadow or something like that, I switched over to retro graphics, and there was more ammo sitting in the middle of the floor that I was standing right next to, but I had not seen it. Right. So, there's that. I will say, and this is an absolute nitpick, the increased draw distance afforded by, of course, modern console and for a remake like this is good, but there are moments where I think it's actually killing either the original vision of the levels, or at least how effective they were playing them on old hardware. So, as an example, in the second area, one of the thing about Tomb Raider is a lot of the levels are like there's big set pieces, and one of them is I think the level is actually called the Coliseum. You go into a Coliseum, so you start the level, you go through this little swimming area, and then you pull yourself up, and there's a building sort of embedded in the rock in front of you, and you work your way into there. Like, you have to sort of go roundabout and climb up the side of it and everything like that. But eventually what happens is you end up in a corridor, and then you turn a door, you turn through a doorway, an archway, and you step out, and in front of you is just this massive, well, it's a Coliseum. It's a massive pit, right? And you're up on a wall, and there are lions running around down there, and apes and things. You kill a lot of animals in Tomb Raider. And it's awesome. I remember seeing it for the first time when I was playing the original game on the Saturn. And it's just like, it's sort of an epic reveal. And that game was really good at that stuff. But because of the increased draw distance in this version, the game is darker because of the lighting, but it feels brighter in general, because the draw distance in the original games, the way they covered it is they just didn't render anything, any further out than they could.
It was all
And
shadow.
it was just all black.
Yeah.
In the distance, it was all black, but it worked because you were underground. So it just felt like it was gloom, right? Like you're in a cave. You can't see much further. That's just how this works.
Right.
It made sense. But because of the increased draw distance, you don't have that. And for the most part, that's a good thing. But in moments like at the Coliseum, it's a bad thing. So I remember playing this originally, and the way that the model for the level worked is that you couldn't see, if you were standing in the middle, you couldn't see either end. And in this area of the game, there's another sort of a competing archaeologist, Pierre Dupont, which is, it's the whole Indiana Jones thing versus Belloc, like that sort of thing, right? And he'll pop up every now and then. He'll just spawn in. You couldn't ever see him because of the draw distance. He would spawn in from so far away. You could hear him, but you couldn't see him. And like, he'll show up and he has a life bar, and he'll start shooting at you, and you start shooting at him. And the way that the game works is when you do enough damage to him, because you couldn't kill him, he would run and like
away.
turn a corner, right? And then he would despawn. And like, if you were to chase him around that corner, he'd be gone. You couldn't see him. He escaped, which I thought was a pretty effective way to do things. But then in this level, like, previously he could have run off into the gloom and despawned, and you wouldn't have been able to see him. But now, because you can see the entire level, I actually had a situation where, okay, sorry. Can I finish? Do you need me? Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. We good?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you after.
Okay. Sorry. My son was asking me something.
Sure.
Anyway, I had a situation in this level where I think that's what was supposed to happen, but because I could still see him, he didn't disappear. His life bar was gone. He was still running around and shooting me, but I couldn't damage him until like I had to kind of back up so he had a chance to get out the doorway down the hall, so he could disappear basically, and he could despawn. And I've had other situations where like a level I was in previously today, actually, where there are giant rats at one point in the game too, and there was one that was just standing there. I could see it, but I couldn't target it. But I know in the original game, I wouldn't have been able to see it. So the model was there, but it wasn't an active enemy yet. So I couldn't damage it. It wasn't moving. It's not happening a lot, but it is happening. But the other thing the reason I'm bringing up the Colosseum is because in the original game, like the way the level model worked too is like the ceiling would kind of fold in jagged pieces, but then it wasn't all rendered up there, because why would you do that? But because of the way they were, anything that they weren't drawing, the background was just black. So it was kind of had this feeling where you're in such a deep hole, like you're looking up and you can't see the top, right? And it worked to create the atmosphere and sort of create this feeling of isolation, and you're like in the deepest, darkest depths and that sort of thing. And it really works great. Well, now because of in the modern version, in the remake, the way that they've done that is they've added skyboxes. So now you look up and there's sky, and it's like, well, all these lost tombs and these lost ruins that nobody can find, like fly a friggin' plane over it, like it doesn't make any sense. And it started to when I noticed that, then I was starting to kind of look around, because I think what they've tried to do is, obviously for the sake of realism, I guess, you want to have some light sources. And the way they've done that is they've actually added a lot of like skylights to the different rooms. So like you'll walk into a room and you'll look up and there's just a big open area above you and there's blue sky out there. And I was like, I wonder if that's how this level was designed originally. So then I'd swap over to the original mode and look up, and it was just ceiling. Like there was a rendered ceiling there. So they added a bunch of holes in the ceilings in the different levels. And it's just like, I don't know, it kind of kills the atmosphere a little bit.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's a huge nitpick. It doesn't really affect gameplay or anything like that, but it's just like it takes it from, again, one of the greatest things for Tomb Raider for me was just like these big open set piece areas, or like you'd be running forward and there's a sphinx later in the game, but when you first get into the room you're in is so huge you can't see the other side of it. So like you would move forward and it would just sort of appear out of the darkness. And that was just one of the cool things. Or like the when you fight the Tyrannosaurus in the the Lost Valley, same thing. Like you can the screen is shaking and you can hear it way before you can see it, and then it's just like on you. But because you can see so far into the distance now, and again, that's another level that has a big skybox above it, it still looks cool, but it's just kind of, it changes the feeling of it, the feeling of the level.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, again, it makes it sound like I'm disappointed, and I'm not. I can't put it down. I'm at 49%, I think it said. And I'm really loving re-experiencing it. But yeah, it's just like one of those things that the more I notice it, the more it bugs me.
I see.
Yeah. But still loving it. And I'll probably jump into 2 and 3. I don't have as strong memories of 2 and 3. I played both of those once. I felt like as much as I liked the franchise and still like the franchise, they got into like the first game was so popular that they got into yearly releases really fast.
They did.
And I mean, immediately, basically. And each subsequent game suffered for it, in my opinion. So like 2 and 3, I liked, but they weren't nearly as good as the first one. So, that's fine, but I'm still going to play them anyway. But this is $40 Canadian, I think. So probably 30 US for those 3 games. That's a good deal. And they're well done. I think they're well done. So yeah, that's what I spent my time on this week. That's pretty much what I was playing.
Awesome. Well, I've been playing a couple of video games.
Good.
I'll talk about Mario vs. Donkey Kong first. I don't really have like a lot of nostalgia for this game. Like my nostalgia in this series, the whole Mario vs. Donkey Kong and the minis, is in Donkey Kong 94.
Yeah.
Where it kind of introduced that gameplay of, it's a little bit of action, like Donkey Kong-esque, but also it's a puzzle game where you need to get a key to the keyhole, or you have to collect some collectibles and then get to the goal. Like that, I have better memories of Donkey Kong 94 than of Mario versus Donkey Kong. I did play it back in the day, but I don't think I finished it. And I kind of dropped off of the series after that point. Like when they started doing the minis stuff more, I just didn't really find that terribly interesting. But I do like this gameplay, which is close to Donkey Kong 94, but it's not exactly the same. It's still an action puzzle game. There are still enemies that you can like hop onto the heads of and like ride around. So they're Shy Guys, and some of the enemies from like Donkey Kong Country are kind of in there too as sort of chibi-fied versions. And then there's also like Mario series. There's Piranha Plants and all that good stuff as well. I'm almost done with the second world in this game. The first world, the boss fight at the end was up against Donkey Kong, and he's sort of smashing 3 different buttons, which either make certain platforms appear or they disappear. And you have to hit him with some throwable objects. That's another thing you can do in this game. You can pick up objects and enemies and throw them, which, as a fan of Super Mario Brothers 2, I happen to love that mechanic. I think it's great. And so I think this game is really fun, but it probably should have been cheaper. It's a
So it's
puzzle game. It's $50 US. It doesn't feel, and I've heard it's very short. It doesn't feel like it is that echelon of game. And
Is it just a remake of the Game Boy?
yes, it's a remake of the Game Boy Advance game plus 2 extra worlds, I believe. Which is cool. I wish it also included a Donkey Kong 94 remake. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, I think that would have been great.
And that
I mean,
was
I don't
the
have.
game they
yeah.
should have remade.
Yeah.
They should have remade that one, or they should have included
Do you
it
think
in
that
this.
that would be tough to do because of all the silliness around the rights to Donkey Kong and
No,
the original arcade game?
I don't think so. No.
No. Well, if you don't think so,
I mean, didn't they solve that? I mean, Arcade
don't know.
Archives released Donkey
oh, yeah,
Kong.
I guess they did. That's true. Yeah.
So I don't know. But for what this is, I think it's cool. It works well on the Switch in handheld mode, especially just because it's a nice, fun, easy breezy puzzle game.
Originally a handheld game anyway.
Originally a handheld game anyway, yeah. And I think it works really well for that. Yeah, it doesn't have, I don't know, it doesn't have like a high quality presentation. It doesn't have, it's not like they added voice acting or anything. All of it is sort of silent protagonist, Mario noises and grunts, and Donkey Kong grunts. And it's a remaster, but it's not like, it's basically a new coat of paint on an old game. It feels like, instead of really like going all out. And I guess this is sort of the latter days of the Switch, right? Like
Maybe
where
they should bring out new hardware this year.
they should. We're waiting until next year, I guess. But and also like they made a game around this time, the same time. This was for the GameCube. Do you remember this? At E3 they showed off a Mario Donkey Kong game for the GameCube that had
Did it actually come out?
No, it never came out. It had
Okay.
connectivity as well.
I don't remember this.
You don't remember this? Well,
No.
it was on like I think it may have even been a kiosk where you could try it, or maybe it was only on video.
Then it wouldn't surprise me that I don't remember it, because most of my E3s were spent running from meeting to meeting. I spent very little time playing games that were just on kiosks.
Right. I didn't play it at that time. I just saw that it was there.
Yeah.
But it would have been cool to include something like that. Or like I said, have this be a package where Donkey Kong 94 is part of it too.
Right.
And Donkey Kong 94 isn't even on Nintendo Switch Online, which is a shame, I think, because that game,
That is a shame.
So many people, I think, didn't play that back in the day because they thought it was just
Yeah,
Donkey
because
Kong.
they thought they were just getting Donkey Kong.
Yeah, which
That's why
the
I
first
didn't
couple
play it.
levels is just Donkey Kong, and then it changes.
When I think it wasn't until I started working at EGM that somebody even mentioned it.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong 94, because I remember seeing it. Actually, you know what? I'll bet you it was when we were working on the top 100 games during the time that I was there,
Oh
because
yeah.
I know Donkey Kong 94 is on that list.
I'm sure
And
that it is. Yeah.
we sat for days mulling over that list and people making cases for why a game they picked should be on there. And I remember asking directly, like, why is Donkey Kong 94 on this list? Like, it's just, isn't it just Donkey Kong? And I think that's when I
No.
learned that it's like, no, it's not. And it's in game. It's so cool when that happens, because they literally bust out of the old Donkey Kong
Yeah.
to open the game up. It's
And the game changes.
so cool. Yeah.
It's so cool, and it's just such a fun puzzle game. And man, I wish they would have remade that one instead. But this one, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll pay the $50 Nintendo tax to play it. But yeah.
Should get Tomb Raider instead.
I don't have any nostalgia for Tomb Raider. I'm sorry to say.
How dare you?
I only played a little bit of the first Tomb Raider. I don't even know that I played any Tomb Raider 2. Like, I just I hated the tank controls. I hated it.
You're killing Independent George.
I hated it. So I was never put on any of those reviews, I don't think. And thank God, because that would have been torture for me, for sure. All right, let's talk about Banishers.
All right.
Ghosts of
Do
New
it.
Eden. Banishers is a Don't Nod game. Don't Nod Entertainment.
Oh,
who
Don't Nod.
Made Life is Strange, and they made Jusant last year. And they also made a game called Vampire back in 2017, 2018, which I didn't, which I think I saw, but I thought it was part of that whole Vampire the Masquerade thing. I didn't pay any attention to it. I didn't know it was Don't Nod anyway. But I played a little bit of that sort of in preparation for Banishers, because apparently it is the same development team that worked on Vampire did Banishers. And Banishers is a narrative heavy open world-esque combat game, like action game with RPG elements.
That would not fit in the genre
No.
space in an EGM review.
It wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. But basically, it's Life is Strange with more action. How's that?
Sure.
And they have been marketing this game quite a bit. Like, there was a trailer at the Game Awards and Summer Game Fest, and it's been on some showcases, but nobody remembers this game.
All right.
Yeah, and I made note of it because I thought the trailer looked so cool. Basically, it's about a couple, a man and a woman, who are Ghostbusters / exorcists.
Yeah.
They're a
Do they have an ape?
couple. What?
Do they have an ape?
They don't have an ape. No.
Whatever.
Not good enough, huh?
Not real Ghostbusters.
But towards the beginning of the game, the female pair dies. She's killed.
Okay.
In a pretty awesome scene where they've been called from England to the US, to the New World, to exorcise these ghosts, right?
Okay.
Because their friend couldn't do it by himself, and he ended up dead from trying to do this. And there's apparently a very big evil ghost in this town, and so they arrive and they're like, what the hell is happening here? Antea, who is the female lead, thinks she can deal with it herself, because the Red, who is the man in the couple, is her apprentice. He's not like a full banisher yet.
Okay.
He's learning from her. So she goes off to fight the big bad. He wakes up, realizes she's gone, and chases after her. And then a whole bunch of shit goes down. She dies. But because these are banishers, they can see people who have died but have not gone on to the other place yet. Kind of like Frighteners. Do you know the Frighteners movie?
Yeah, I know the Frighteners. Because of you.
I love the Frighteners.
I know you do.
And so their job is to exorcise ghosts and also to help the spirits of the undead who have not moved on move on. So anytime like those ghosts are sticking around and impacting the lives of the living that are still around, they help them move on to the other plane. So now Antea is dead and she's a ghost that Red can see. And he decides, I guess you have the decision, you have the moral choice in the game, whether you want to help resurrect her or if you are going to help her ascend, which is basically like move on to the next plane and of the afterlife, basically. So you have like a moral choice there. And then it turns into a bit of an investigation game because you meet people who are being haunted by the spirits of the dead and sometimes tormented, sometimes not. And you have to decide once you sort of solve their little kerfuffle, you have to decide whether you are going to uh help them ascend, banish them, or there's also you're going to kill the person who's alive also, which is a bit of a weird choice, but you basically have to take, I believe you have to, I've only done one or two of the investigations, but you have to, your choice is to take the life of a living person and then help Antea be resurrected. So, and in order to fully resurrect her, she has to get to a certain unspoken amount of lives that you've taken throughout the course of the game. So, yeah, it's very heavy on the narrative. There is combat, but it's pretty, at least so far for me, it's pretty basic stuff. Apparently it gets a little more complicated later, but the combat seems to be in that sort of God of War 2018 style.
Okay.
But it is a really good game. I am a sucker for games that are about the afterlife and about like helping people move on to the next plane and ghosts and all this stuff. Like I love that kind of thing. So to me, when I saw the trailers for this, I was like, that's sort of catnip for me. And so I remembered the name of the game, whereas other people did not. And I've been like kind of anticipating this, and Focus Entertainment put out like just a crap load of trailers for this game, like going over the combat systems and the narrative and the story and the investigations, and still nobody knows the name of this game. It's called Banishers, by the way. Banishers. But I feel like, yeah, this is from Don't Nod, who, Life is Strange is a really, really popular game, and people just are not paying attention to this one at all, which I think is maybe because it's such a crazy time with releases right now.
Yeah.
There's no quiet time anymore to release a game like this, but the fact that it is so narratively strong, and it is, a ghost hunting, ghost busting story, as well as a love story between these two characters who now are separated by, well, one's dead and is a ghost, and the other is living and trying to resurrect her. And that whole thing I thought was really interesting. And I've been playing this with my daughter, and she's been helping me make the moral choices that you make in the game and sort of go through the dialogue trees. And she really loves that kind of thing. So we're having fun playing it together.
Nice.
She decided to kill the first thing. She wants to resurrect.
Got her stone cold.
Yeah. So that's been really fun. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. And the reason I remember that title is because the initials of it are Be Gone. It's kind of apparently that was the code name for the game. Be Gone. Yeah.
Pretty clever.
Yeah, I've been playing Banishers. Also been playing Skull and Bones a little bit. This game is so maligned just in the press. And I feel like the problem with this game is that it isn't what people wanted from Ubisoft. They wanted a Black Flag 2. They wanted Assassin's Creed
Okay.
Black Flag 2. They wanted the pirate naval combat, but they also wanted the on foot, all that stuff. And that's not what this game is. It's really just the naval portion of it. It's the seafaring portion of that game. And because it doesn't include all the Assassin's Creed stuff, and there's not as compelling a single player story, people are punishing this game for trying something different because it's not what they wanted. And I get that. Like, it is, I would have loved a Black Flag sequel as well, because I love Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Actually, they kind of did a sequel. It's called Assassin's Creed Rogue,
Okay.
and that is available on other platforms. They did a remaster of it for PS4, and if you want Black Flag 2, that's probably as close as you're going to get to it for a little while. Although apparently the rumor is that Ubisoft is remaking or remastering Black Flag, and it is, I guess, 10 years old now, so it's officially a retro game.
I was gonna say, how old is Black Flag at this point? It's quite a while.
It came out in 2013. It was the
Okay.
first game that I had for the PS4. It did come out for the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation, but because the PS4 was like a month away from that release and they were doing a PS4 version, I just waited
Okay.
until the PS4 came out. And that's the only reason why I remember the year it came out. But Skull and Bones, I think, is a good game. It is much more of a pirate ship simulator and probably closer to an MMO than a narrative game. And I like the combat. The naval combat's fun. It's really fun to play in a group, especially because you kind of like wander the seas together and you're kind of rolling with your homies on the sea, and it feels fun. Fighting
Your
NPC
homies.
ships. I think I said last week that I got into a battle with like 4 other real players and like 4 other NPC ships, and that was super fun. And I'm looking forward to more of that in this now that the final game's out. And like they did with the Crew Motorfest, Ubisoft is doing a trial for this game. You can play it for 8 hours without buying it. Like this, so they did an open beta last weekend, and now you can play it for 8 hours and just try it. And on the one hand, that's good, because I think the people who might like this game can figure out if they'd like it. But it's also like, I see a lot of people online downloading it, trying the trial, and it's only confirming their hatred of it because it's not Black Flag 2.
Well, I mean, we said this a few weeks back that this was going to be a major uphill battle for anyone who had to market this game. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that doesn't surprise me that they're doing the trial.
No, not at all. Will it work? I don't think so. Does it mean this game is going to be dead on arrival? I don't think so either. Like, I don't think Ubisoft is ready to throw in the towel on
Well,
this.
they've got so much money tied up in it at this point.
They do. And they have outlined like a year's worth of content that they are putting out for it. So, I mean, it is going to be supported at least for that time. So I think I'll play it. I don't think it'll become my main game or anything like that. But it is fun to kind of sail around and harvest resources and upgrade your ship and fight
That
other
does
people.
sound like fun.
I know, right? Apparently the end game is all PvP related stuff.
Boo.
That could be good, it could be bad. I'm really not sure. But yeah, I much prefer the Sea of Thieves approach to that has a flat progression. There's no power progression. So people who buy it on PlayStation when it eventually comes out are going to be on equal footing with people who have been playing it for the 6 years that it's been out, or 7 years it's been out. All right, let's get to the good stuff. I've also been playing Helldivers 2.
Starship Troopers 2?
Starship Troopers, the game. Basically.
There is actually a Starship Troopers game, is there not?
There is a Starship Troopers game.
Yeah.
And browsing the Helldivers Reddit, I get a lot of ads for the Starship Troopers game. Let me tell you. Because it's so similar. But Helldivers 2, yeah, this kind of came out of nowhere, right? And suddenly it was the most popular. It's the biggest launch of any PlayStation Studios game on Steam. 400,000 concurrents today it broke. So it's doing very well on Steam.
So how does that compare to something like a Fortnite?
Well, Fortnite's not on Steam.
Oh,
so I don't know.
Well, still, but okay, we don't have any idea on audience size.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Fortnite's probably bigger, but
Well, I assume it's bigger, but I'm just anyway.
I'm sure it's definitely bigger. Yeah. I don't know, but it is climbing up there. It has already, I think, beaten Destiny 2 on Steam and Starfield and I think Monster Hunter World. So like some big
Okay.
games there. And yeah, it's Starship Troopers basically. And all of the fun tongue-in-cheek humor about patriotism goes along with that. And there's so much in this game, so many lines. And Yuri Lowenthal is one of the voice actors, by the way.
Oh, really?
There's 4 voice packs you can choose from, two male and 2 female, and Yuri is one of the male voices, and it's hilarious because you hear a lot of the voice lines often when you're in combat, and if you're like mowing down bugs, he'll just scream out for Super Earth, and it's hilarious. It's amazing because the faction that you're fighting for is called Super Earth, and
Okay.
you're spreading managed democracy. You don't really know what that means.
Spreading managed democracy.
That's right. Yeah. By killing bugs, I guess. But it's a super fun game. It is procedurally not really procedurally generated, but the maps and planets that you land on are all kind of different each time. They have the same kind of biome, but there will be day-night cycles, there will be weather cycles. The bugs will be in a different location. There are all types of missions. Some of them you're hunting specific types of bugs. Others you're trying to destroy bug nests. In others, like there are side missions where you have to like fix satellite uplinks and things like that as well. And it's just fun. It's just real fun. It looks pretty. The guns feel awesome. You die a lot to friendly fire because, by the way, friendly fire is always on in this game. And nice. I'm just having a really good time with it. I played with our good friend Mike. And
no, you forced him to play it. Let's be honest.
I did. I bought him a copy on Steam.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, at least you bought him a copy. Okay.
I bought him a copy. He didn't have to buy it.
Did you use Patreon funds for that?
No, I did not.
All right.
And then we played with Thomas, aka Helldivers, and we had a blast. We had a good time.
Cool.
That. Yeah, and the servers for this game are on fire constantly. Like they did not expect this game to take off in the way.
Yeah, I read that today. Somebody I was on Facebook or Blue Sky or something saying like they wanted to play it, but they wanted to wait till the server situation got sorted out.
This is the second weekend where the servers have been on fire. And the funny thing is that, well, Sony didn't think this game was going to be as big as it is. Clearly,
sure.
Sony is running a promo this weekend where you can play Helldivers 2 without a PlayStation Plus. You can play it online without a PlayStation Plus account, and it's like, have you seen the server situation with this? Why would you have a promo?
Somebody better run out to Dell.
Also, why would you have exactly? Why would you have a promo for that for a game like Helldivers 2, which is only online? So if you were to buy it because of this promo, because it's free, you'd have to have a PlayStation Plus subscription.
Oh, that's
like sneaky. The day after to even like do anything with it.
Yeah.
So
I'm
that's a
sure
little
they'll
weird.
be. I'm sure they'll be pretty upfront about that when you go to fire it up. I would say.
No.
You don't think so?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
CJ, you're so cynical.
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think PlayStation ever imagined that this game would take off like wildfire. And it is because of the chaos that happens in game when you're fighting these bugs and when people are calling in airstrikes all around you and everyone's dying. Like it's it's just absolute chaos and it's great. And part of it is because it's so emergent, like the levels are procedurally set up, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when the enemies are going to spawn behind you. You don't know which angle they're coming from. Like you can't sort of memorize the maps or anything like that. You can kind of know the terrain and know, okay, like usually in this area, this is what happens. So I should throw out an airstrike here. But you can never really know exactly what's going to happen. And that's the fun of it. And I have been playing a lot with randoms online, and it's got a really good ping system. The R1 button is a ping, and you just look at the thing that is coming at you, or if you see something over the hill, you can ping it, and it's
So what does
good.
that do? That just marks it?
It
Is that-
marks it, yeah. Either
Okay.
as a point of interest, or if you're hovered over a bug, it'll mark it as bugs, and the in-game voice says bugs over here, or
Okay.
there's a nest over here, and it does the thing which I really love in multiplayer games where your character will say, "Oh, I found a point of interest in the game dialogue." You don't have to ping it at that point. It'll just say it as if it's part of the narrative, part of the sort of in-world conversation, which I love. I love that kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a really good game. I streamed some of it the other night. I think you were watching. Played
For
for a
about
little
10
while.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw me dying a lot, but I died a lot in at least one of the matches.
Way less than I would have.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of this game's
Yeah.
thing. You die a lot, but it's super fun and it looks great, and it's gonna be a hit for Sony. I think once they get the servers figured out, I think it's gonna remain a big hit. All right,
Alrighty.
that's all I've been playing. So I guess that means I
Did you
should
set
bring
up-
up.
I was going to say, did you set up the soundboard? Come on.
I should bring up the soundboard so that I can click the button when it's time for tweets.
Tweedly-diddly-dee. Tweedly-diddly-dee. Tweet. 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 Tweet.
All right. Hey, it worked. Let's do this one from hacker alias Lero, who says, "What's a time
Lero Jenkins.
What's a time you were pleasantly surprised with a game or console and got more than you expected? I was a big fan of Rock Band on the Xbox 360. This week I bought Rock Band 4 for $10. I expected a bare library and planned to pick up some DLC, but all my DLC and disc exports from the 360 games showed up. So now I have close to 400 songs in my Rock Band 4 library. Huge surprise since digital marketplaces are not known for keeping your purchases for 15 plus years. Anytimes you got more than you expected."
We should really prep for these.
We should.
Nothing's really.
I mean, I think I could point to Sea of Thieves as a game I thought I'd buy and play for a couple months.
Thousands of hours later.
Now I've played it for thousands of hours. I play it at least once a week still. Yeah, that was certainly more than I bargained for from that $60 price tag.
I would say that I'd say the Gran Turismo series kind of is that way for me, which is weird because I mean the very first one I felt exactly that way because it was just so different from any racing game that I played on a console, and you just had tons of cars and tracks, but then getting to something like 5 and 6 on the PS3, I think 6 especially, it feels silly to say that I got more than I bargained for, because you ended up getting a ton of tracks and a ton of cars, because that's kind of what that game does. But that was when they really started to support those games, way more than I ever would have expected. With not just with cars and tracks, but with little mini documentaries and things like that. When they would release like they released a couple of Ayrton Senna's historic F1 cars as drivable vehicles in the game, or at least one, I think. I think it was a Lotus. But it came with like a full Ayrton Senna documentary where they talked to his sister Vivian and sort of went through his whole life and career. And then they did something very similar with Mario Andretti, where they released, I think it was like the first car he and his brother built to go racing as a playable car. But again, it came with a full like video documentary talking to Mario Andretti and about his life and career and stuff. And so that I remember being super happy about. And they've kind of continued. They don't do anything that cool anymore, but they've kind of continued that way. Because I mean, when Sport came out, it was quite underwhelming, I thought. But I mean, the level of support that they gave that thing before they finally shut it off a few weeks ago was way more than I ever expected to get for free. You don't pay for any of the stuff that they add to those games. So, I mean, you get, I think, more than you get a lot for your initial purchase anyway. But then the level of support is just fantastic. That's the whole reason why, as disappointed as I was with Gran Turismo 7 when it came out, I wasn't all that worried, because they've got a reputation now for supporting those games to death. So it's great. For years and years.
Yeah, I certainly don't have a moment like discovering that all of your DLC moves forward in Rock Band. Like,
Right.
yeah, I can't come up with something like that. But
I remember unlocking Death Tank in games that were made on the Saturn by Lobotomy Software.
yeah, Power Slave.
Power Slave and Duke Nukem 3D and Quake.
Yeah.
Where if you had save files from one of the other games, you'd unlock a little, it's basically like Worms. It's just a little trajectory-based 2D shooter. That was cool.
Indeed.
When you didn't know it was going to happen.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's do this one from Hacker Alias. A gamer looks at 40. It's our buddy Bill.
He's coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
He's been on hiatus. I'm so excited. I love that show.
Fans have been clamoring for Final Fantasy VI to get a Final Fantasy VII style remaster or remake. Should Square Enix bother or leave exceptional enough alone?
I don't think they should do a remake in this Final Fantasy VII vein.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have to. I don't think that makes any sense. What I would love to see them do, though I doubt it'll ever happen, I'd love to see them use that. What do they call that engine? It's like a 2.5D engine.
HD2D.
The HD2D engine. I would love to see them do a remake using that.
Me too.
I think that would.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah, that would just be like the perfect way to do a remake of Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah, or it's more like a pop-up book.
Right.
Or like has that feel.
Yeah.
And I think they are doing Dragon Quest 3. They announced it a long time ago.
And Suikoden, isn't the Suikoden remake doing that as well?
Is it?
I thought it was.
You might be right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have not been following that series. But I would love an HD 2D remake of Final Fantasy VI. I think they will revisit Final Fantasy VI. I think saying never is, it's probably not going to get the attention and budget that Final Fantasy VII is getting, because that doesn't make sense for that game. But I could see it either being an HD 2D thing or like a Trials of Mana thing, where it's sort of, it's 3D and it's higher budget, but it's still like more rooted in that retro architecture.
I feel like any of those games pre Final Fantasy VII are looked at as being too old
Yeah.
for them to give as much
What
attention
about
to. I mean,
Chrono Trigger?
the yeah, that would be great too. The pixel remasters were fantastic. But
Yeah.
I don't know, it just feels like they're from the before. You know what I mean?
The before times.
Yeah, the only way I can think to say it, like, just I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I hope I'm wrong, but that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah. All right, let's end with this one. And maybe you know something. Are you watching the Scotties Tournament of Hearts?
I watched a little bit of it.
Okay, then
Do you know what it is?
We'll do this question. From Acrelius Rob Yapel, who says, anyone watching the Scotties Tournament of Hearts is a curling thing, FYI, for the non-Greg P1 hosts. TSN is streaming most of the games on YouTube for us in the States.
Oh, cool.
Crazy to think this is Jennifer Jones' last dance before retiring.
Yep, it is. I don't think there's really a question there, but yeah.
There's not a question.
Jennifer Jones is one of our... Well, I don't watch it. I won't watch the whole thing, but my aunt who lives upstairs is a big curling fan. And I mean, curling, it's a big deal in Canada. So, you know, if it's on, and I'll watch it. If it's in the Olympics, I'll definitely watch it.
Yeah, me too. When curling's on in the Olympics, if it's on when I'm watching TV, I'll watch it.
But Jennifer Jones is like sort of she's like the
Michael
big
Jordan?
name in female curling in Canada.
She's the Michael Jordan of
curling. She's like a gold medalist, and I think she's tied for the most Scotties wins. She's got 6. She's tied with another woman actually from around here, Colleen Jones, who also has 6. So I think if she's pushing to win this one, obviously, and then she'll hold that record. But yep, it's always fun to have curling on. It's always exciting. It's great stuff, man. It's good sport. You should watch it. That's really cool that they're streaming it in the US. That's awesome. That's great to hear. I wish that more things would stream the other way. I'd love to see stuff instead of US clicking on a YouTube video and said not available in your region. I love that. That's the best.
Does that happen a lot?
Yeah,
that still happens.
Oh. Yeah, more than I'd like to. Yeah, more than you'd like anyway.
Okay, I think that's it. I think that's the show.
Let's do it.
Alrighty, and that is our show for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you have a question for us or would like to comment on something you heard, you can direct that to @P1 Podcast on various social media platforms, but definitely X and Threads. Or you can visit our website at player1podcast.com. There you'll find all sorts of things like our contact information. You'll find Sega CD stuff from Mr. Greg Seward there. You find Generation 16 episodes as they happen. You'll find show notes and links to all the things that we talked about during these shows, and a link to our Discord server where you can discuss this episode with us and our other listeners.
If you would like to subscribe to the Player One Podcast, you can do so by going to player1podcast.com. There's a dog outside barking.
Oh,
sounds really close. Or to the it's going again, the Apple podcasting app.
Yep.
Right?
Or anywhere you get your podcast.
I was going to say, or anywhere you get your podcast. We're in all the major podcast feeds. I'm not going to go through them because I'll name some that don't exist anymore. If you want to catch the show live, you can usually do so on Facebook or YouTube or on X.
We tried streaming to X tonight and it worked.
Seems to have worked. Or on Twitch, Twitch TV/P1 Podcast. Normally we broadcast at 9:30. I'm not going to say 8:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say Atlantic time because nobody will know what I'm talking about. 8:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday nights. So hey, come and join us and chat. We don't always respond to the chat, but sometimes
that's true. We almost never respond to the chat,
but other people
still,
in the chat
come join us. Exactly. Yeah. People chat in the chat.
Yeah, chat away.
Yeah.
If you would like to support the show, and we would love it if you did, you can do that at patreon.com/P1 Podcast. Helps keep the lights on. Helps CJ buy copies of games for my friends.
No,
No,
it
I mean,
does
wait,
not.
no, we don't use Patreon funds for that. Sorry,
No,
but it
No.
does pay for the odd game for us to talk about on the show.
it does.
And if you are a supporter of the $5 variety,
Cheap.
you get access to the after show, the weekly after show, where we play games, we crack wise, we do all the things we can't do on the regular show. CJ,
Yeah.
what do we got planned for this week's after show?
Well, we're going to do something a little different this week and stolen from other podcasts that I enjoy. We're going to take a look back at a year in gaming and a year in our own lives and talk about it and have fun, maybe. Or maybe it'll be horrifically traumatic.
We've done all of 10 minutes of preparation for this, so it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about 1996.
That's the year Tomb Raider came out.
This year. Yeah. So the after show will all be about 1996 and our lives in 96 and our gaming in 1996. And I think it'll be fun. Maybe I don't know.
You're really selling it. Like you're just I can hear people clicking on $5 supporter right now.
I think it'll be fun. You'll get to find out what happened in Greg's life in 96 or my life in 96.
I don't
We knew
remember what
each other
happened
in
in
96. Do you realize that?
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, because we were on IRC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Merc. And hey, if you feel like supporting my YouTube stuff, you can do that as well over at patreon.com/Seward, where you can support Generation 16 and other video projects I'm working on. And if you are a supporter of the $5 variety over there,
It's patreon.com/Greg Seward.
that's what I said.
You
$5 variety over there.
Also cheap.
There you go. It's /Greg Seward.
Yeah.
You get access to the weekly commute, which is a weekly vlog where I talk about all the things that I'm working on, what I really think about CJ correcting me in real time. Man, now I've got some content for this week's weekly commute.
There you go. Yeah.
How dare you? Thank you so much for those of you who do support me over there. Hey, CJ.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming this week, man.
Well, thanks for showing up, Greg.
I wouldn't miss
Thanks
it.
for not hearing laryngitis.
Yep. I'm working on it, but I haven't managed to catch it yet.
I've never lost my voice. Have you ever?
Never.
Never had that.
I don't think I've ever had laryngitis. No.
Yeah.
No.
Never had laryngitis. Never lost my voice.
Yeah, I think I've lost my voice here and there, but usually after screaming at children. But what are you going to do?
Do it.
Yeah. And listen, thank you, dear listeners, for joining us this week and every week. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you being here. Because, hey, if you weren't here, what are we even doing this for? To talk to each other?
I know. We can do that anytime.
Nah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'd have to start playing Burnout again, but...
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.